Today is Tuesday, June 4th, 2024 at 12:02 p.m. Central Time. Welcome to a business meeting of the Minnesota Advisory Committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and is open to the public. Present at today's meeting are staff of the Commission and members of the Minnesota Advisory Committee. Also, there may be members of the public joining us, and toward the end of the meeting, the committee will open for public comment. The chair of the committee is Beth Commerce, and I now yield the floor to her.
Thank you, Liliana, and thank you for all the work you do, Anna. Thank you too for all the work you do. It's really appreciated. So I'm going to do a quick roll call just based on the members who I see are present. Just to make it clear, we do not have quorum, so we will just be conducting an administrative meeting until and if we do get one more member. So Will Stansel.
Present.
Lucas Castor.
Here.
Larry Purdy. Larry, you're on mute.
Here. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
And I'm Beth Commerce. Great. I think we can just right to finding 5. Isn't that right?
Yes. Let me go ahead and share my screen.
Oh, actually, Anna,
Oh.
I would love it if I could share my screen. Would that be
Oh.
acceptable?
Sure. And you're using the same.
Yes.
Okay.
I sure am.
So we are working from draft version 6 as of May 17, 2024.
Great. The reason I asked if I could share my screen is because I made just a few tiny edits that I would like to propose and then have folks consider. If we get a quorum, I would like us to consider them today. And if we don't, then I would like to just send them along for everybody to consider for next time. So can you all see my screen? Please give me a nod or something. Yes. Okay, great. So that puts us at finding 5. I know I had edited the text of this before to read the concentration of affordable housing can impact opportunity. I guess what I would like to change, and I didn't even do it on this one. I would like to change it to long-term outcomes. So it reads, the concentration of affordable housing can impact long-term.
So I think we probably need a little more specificity there. Because
Exactly. I think that's exactly what we're going to do in the findings. So let's just hold it and let's just keep going through what I propose. Okay. And if anybody else has any things that they propose, by all means, just jump on in. So, what I've done is I propose the yellow highlights. You'll see where my proposals are such.
I'm sorry, we're just removing that?
Well, Will, if you just let me explain. So we don't explain in that paragraph anything other than reduced incomes or worsened mental health and lower educational attainment. So I just thought it was saying nothing about nothing that we point out to. We make this really huge statement, but we don't explain it at all in that paragraph.
So I would strongly disagree with this. I think that the sentence, provides a lot of information. It is self-explanatory what it's saying. It says confining disadvantaged groups. You found it residential segregation, empirically demonstrated to reduce people's ability to enter opportunity networks. I mean, I think that, and then there's a citation. In fact, there's, I believe, probably the several sources there. And if people want more, they can read the citation. I don't think this is meaningfully different from anything else we have. And I don't see any reason to remove this.
Sure, but if you look at the next paragraph, as a result of findings like these, we don't give any findings. We don't say anything. We don't give any specifics in that previous paragraph that explain what findings like these are. We don't give any data. We just say that it impacts it. There are no findings in there other than the fact that the sweeping statements that these things are impacted.
It says some researchers have found and makes a statement, and then there's a citation to the actual findings. If people want data, they can look at the citation. I mean, isn't that how the entire report has been structured to this point?
Okay, so we're just doing an administrative hearing, so let's keep going. I understand that Minnesota Housing, Commissioner Ho sent her letter. And so I had written most affordable housing in the state has been built in the urban core cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. That the commissioner is asking us to highlight, while MHFA reports that in the last several years, 63% of the new units in Twin Cities Metro have been awarded, yada, yada, yada. Panelists also expressed concern that these geographic patterns prevent lack of access to opportunity. So that's the edit that I propose. We kind of meet in a middle ground. We take out my words that were not founded in data, that were just blanket statements, and then we put some data into it, and then we stick to the intent of the paragraph, which was to go to the panelists. You see, Will, like right here, access to opportunity, including educational attainment. We just repeat this paragraph in yellow again and again and again. We say that it impacts education and income, but we don't give any information about it. We're just making these big lofty statements.
We literally cite to several studies in the Nature, and I mean these are like top tier journals. I don't understand what that means. Surely that suffices as support for this statement.
Sure. So let's keep going. These were all edits that I had put in before that I think we talked about folks being fine with. We'll have to, if we get another member today, we'll have to go through them. Just broadening, so we're not having a North Minneapolis versus Minnetonka conversation, because Minnesota's more than North Minneapolis and Minnetonka, and success is more than North Minneapolis and Minnetonka. So same thing, I had just repeated all the different communities, looked at home values in all of those communities, and then household income, went to the census data. And then this is actually where we could put that other, just went to data on population data on race and ethnicity. I also think student achievement is correlated with poverty in Minnesota. That's what I would just recommend, that we do poverty in Minnesota. We just remind everybody that we're talking about in Minnesota in this report. In the next paragraph, we had, I'm sorry that it's just highlighted, we had kids of color or teenagers of color. And I thought it would be more consistent to put in people of color instead of teenagers. That was an edit from before. That high income was an edit from before. And then we get to the recommendations. And Anna said we need to acknowledge. Anna, can you remind me, was it 3A?
Yes, it's 3A and then 5D. Also, I want to make an announcement that Sasha Cotton has joined and Leticia Guadarrama has also joined.
Fantastic. Welcome, Sasha.
Sarah Sanchez as well.
Great. So now we have well over our quorum. So welcome to the three of you. Do you need me to do a roll for them, Anna, or is it sufficient to have you announce them?
That's sufficient. Yep, that I announced them.
So 3A, we had changed that. Will had written opportunity framework, and I had wanted it changed to housing as a gateway for services, jobs, education. I really don't want this report to get stuck in this argument that some scholars and some agencies are having about opportunity framework or not. We don't need to use those words to talk about similar things. And those words have also, we've gotten testimony from other people in the industry as well, saying that those are relics of the past. So I just don't really think that this report and this commission needs to be dragged into pre-existing conversations around that. And I would just like to stick to the message that we want and not be a proxy for other arguments. So 3A, review all housing policies to emphasize that housing is a gateway for services, jobs, education. And then Anna, you said 5D, pass legislation to ensure housing agencies provide services to a minimum standard as determined by statewide policy. And then I added pass legislation to create uniformity statewide around property rights to allow more housing production. And those are big and lofty words, and maybe I should change it to just say what I mean. And I just don't know how to, so I would really love the work of this committee. So some communities have lots or properties zoned as single family, and they adhere to that single family requirement. And others, like St. Paul, for example, has loosened it to a 7-plex on a single family lot. And so that is a way that communities either adhere to or embrace more density, or adhere to restrictions on density, or embrace more density, which can impact everything. Housing supply, it could impact production, it could impact rents, it could impact everything. So, Anna, do you propose that we just go back to finding 5 and start over there? Because to give Sasha and Leticia and Sarah an update, we had approved everything up to finding 5.
Yeah, if we can allow for discussion, because those were quite a few track changes that you had proposed, and I know that it sounds like there might be a little bit more discussion needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Just because I suggest something, doesn't mean we're going to do it.
And we might have to just go line by line here, just to.
That's fine.
Yeah, just to make this.
Yeah. So I'll go
everyone,
back to
if
it.
we can hop to finding 5, and that's page, what is it showing on your, now that you've added?
41.
41.
You know, how come? Oh, there we go. There the edits. So the original finding that we had was way too long and wordy. It's my opinion. So I guess I would like us all to find a way to make it shorter. And I really want to encourage us to stay away from the argument that's happening in the housing world on around the words access to opportunity. I don't think that we need to put a stake in the ground around that. I believe I was in full support of the letter that we received, arguing that that was a relic of the past. And I just don't believe that we don't need to go there. And I just, as chair, I don't want us to get dragged further into long-standing arguments that have existed with people in this world. So there you go.
Can I ask a question, Beth?
Yeah, you bet.
I've read through the statements regarding this access to opportunity sort of language issue. And, it seems that we heard a number of the panelists talk about choice.
Exactly.
And are those two things, do those, as not someone who's in the housing industry and not someone who pretends to be an expert in any of this, is opportunity and choice, are those the same thing, or are those different?
No, those are in conflict with each other.
Okay.
I would-
That's how I would understand the argument that is unfolding with materials submitted, that when some say access to opportunity, that's meant to be go to certain communities because people do better in those communities.
Mhm.
And then when some say choice, that people get to choose. It's the whole issue with the PPL presenter who said she went to North High and she got a great education.
Mhm.
That's choice.
So
So-
I've got a comment on that, which I think that is completely incorrect. I'm sorry.
Good. That's good. Honest.
Well, to be clear, I mean, the way choice is usually framed in fair housing context and housing context is that you have housing available in all sorts of different communities, so people can choose to live in a community of their liking and get access to the opportunities, schools or jobs or whatever in that community. So in traditional fair housing context, choice and access opportunity are closely related. What is happening here, in my perspective, is that the concept of access opportunity, of choice, is controversial among particularly the housing industry. The reason why is that when you require greater access to opportunity, you also require that housing be developed in areas that are traditionally hostile to developing affordable housing. It is a much greater lift for the industry. So when you push this, you often get pushback from the industry saying that they would rather not do this. They would rather concentrate the housing in the neighborhoods that have traditionally had high concentrations of affordable housing, that building the units is a higher priority than providing that choice, than providing that access to opportunity. What we have seen with this report is this flood of late-breaking testimony from people almost uniformly affiliated with the housing industry. This is an industry lobbying effort to take this finding out of the report because it endangers their income stream. That is my perspective of what is happening here.
Okay, but
I would be really advising committee against taking this at face value. There is a larger debate here. Is the industry attempting to influence the finding of a report? And while I am happy to include even verbatim some of these objections, simply removing sections of the report in response to industry requests is something I do object to.
So, and I'm not taking a position one way or the other. I mean, what I want to go back to is what the panelists talked about, and what we heard from the people who were talking. I don't want, similar to what Beth's saying, I don't want our committee to get bogged down in the debate around the language. And so I'm not sure whether, is your concern, Will, that changing this to long-term outcomes somehow appeases one side or the other?
I'm fine putting whatever language we can to accurately describe what is happening. I don't care access to opportunity or access to education and jobs or whatever choice. I mean, there are many options here in terms of how to describe this. The fundamental dynamic, though, is important to capture, that housing is a gateway to these things, to services like education, to jobs, to social services. And that in order to have a full selection of housing choices, you need to produce housing in a wide variety of geographic areas, or else it becomes concentrated and segregated. We can describe that from whichever direction we'd like, but I do think that fundamental difficulty, that is an obstacle to housing opportunities and civil rights problem, and it needs to be addressed in the report. What I would really object to is removing that frame from the report.
I think it is important that we note that we chose the panelists based on how we approach this. And it is our job to listen, to take in everything from the people who we invited to present, as well as everything that is submitted to us, because others are catching what we're doing. I just, I really don't think that we need to get into these debates about who's right and who's wrong in this whole fair housing arena. I just don't think it's helpful. I think it's just going to, I don't want to see us put a stake in the ground around one side, which is exactly what Will is saying, but we're coming at it from different areas. I generally reject traditional fair housing methodology and thought because it's something from the past and it's holding us back. So I just really want, I do not want this whole process to become a proxy arena for an argument that is going to continue to happen, regardless of what we do. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I just was going to ask Will if he had a chance to look at the report that we got from Cura dealing with what am I calling it?
Gentrification.
Centralization. Well, whatever. Doesn't that kind of illustrate the difficulty that we're trying to, we're kind of caught on both sides of this? I mean, if you listen to some of the stuff in the report, and I also saw it in that New York report that Harvard report that I circulated a couple of months ago. I mean, there are people that are, very much against trying to move, people into quote opportunity zones. I mean, let people choose. And the question is, I don't know, probably more political than anything else about where you put your money and where you put your focus. And I'm not taking an issue one way or the other. But I'm just pointing out that it seems that we need to be careful so that we don't look like we're coming down on one side or the other. So I tend to agree with Beth, and I think Lucas may have said roughly the same thing. And I understand, Will, what you're saying, but I think we just need to be careful. This bit about opportunity zones and opportunity, if you will, it really, it's a complex issue. And I don't know that we're in a position. We did hear a lot of people on Will's side of it. I agree, but I'm not sure that's the last word or something that we should necessarily weigh in on. That's all. If you hadn't seen that report, if you haven't had a chance to look, this very lengthy, 60 pages plus, and I didn't get all the way through it, but it's pretty interesting. So
I'm very familiar with the Curia report. I've read it several times in the past. I think that it is, first and foremost, a little bit outside the scope of this report. Gentrification is a complicated topic. I actually conducted personally the largest nationwide study in gentrification to date, looking at every single metro. And so, I mean, there's a lot of perspectives on this. I don't think that we really touch on gentrification in this report. I don't think gentrification is really the subject matter of this report, and I don't think that it has a lot of bearing on our findings here, to be honest. With regard to the larger issue here, look, I'm fully supportive. We collected testimony from a diverse range of witnesses. We wrote a report that accumulated the perspectives from that testimony. I'm pretty happy with the way that report looked until today. I think that what has happened since then is we have received a lot of late testimony from people whose interests are impacted by the report. So of course they are, flooding in to try and affect it. We of course have to listen to that testimony. I don't mind incorporating it in this form of appendix or so summary of the remarks and list of who's given them. I think modifying the report substantially from our initial efforts to have a balanced set of findings in response to this testimony is allowing us to be unduly influenced by again what I believe to be industry affiliated groups, and I would strongly object to that. So the other thing I would say, I've got one additional comment regarding fair housing. Fair housing is written into federal law. Promoting fair housing, affirmatively furthering fair housing is written into federal law. It is written into state law. This is fundamental civil rights law. We cannot say, I think, as a federal civil rights committee, that we simply reject the framework of fair housing. I think that would be outside of our mandate as a commission. And, at that point, we're really straying, pretty far from the path.
Will, when I talk about rejecting the traditional framework. I mean, rejecting traditional thoughts. Traditional thought in fair housing was redlining, right? That's the kind of stuff that I reject. I reject policies that exclude. So now when I look at this report, I don't really feel like there are substantial changes because I do not put the weight on the phrase opportunity that you do for working in the industry. And the fact that you look at this and think there are substantial changes tells me that we've walked into a hornet's nest with taking out opportunity. The notion of opportunity from some places is a big deal. It shouldn't be a big deal. If opportunity really meant access in a non-politicized sense, these would not be a lot of changes, but they are, because opportunity is a loaded word these days because of what's happened in the housing industry. And I don't want this committee to get stuck in that. It's unnecessary. And I don't believe that we should politicize this report.
As I said, I'm very happy to do it in a way where we describe what we mean instead of we don't have to say opportunity. We can say housing is a gateway to education, jobs, and services, and that housing
Great,
needed.
Great. Let's write that down.
Okay. Yeah. Housing is a gateway to education, jobs, and services, and housing units need to be available to provide in all geographic areas to provide access to these things. I mean, we'll think of a better word than things, but I mean, that is the core thing. We don't have to use the word opportunity. We can just describe what we mean. We can also, and the other component of that is that if housing units are not available, if housing units are concentrated in areas that only have one type of educational, services or job, low jobs or whatever, then that's a problem because people are unable to access those things. So that's totally fine if we just describe it like that. It's not the word, it's the concept.
Okay, great. So let's go see, but that's it, right? That's how loaded that phrase is. That's how loaded that phrase is. And I don't want us to go there. So finding 5, the concentration of affordable housing can impact long-term outcomes for individuals and families. Does that work for everybody? If not, fine. Put some different words in here. But let's get to something that we all will tolerate as a group.
Can we just add a clause saying by restricting availability of choices?
That's what we do in the whole finding.
Well, I just think it's
just the
clear.
heading.
Okay,
just the
fine.
heading.
It's the other ones are quite long too. I just thought it'd be clear to add more detail, but it's fine.
What does everybody else think?
Well, can you repeat what you had just proposed to change in the reading of finding 5?
Yeah, the concentration of affordable housing can impact long-term outcomes for individuals and families by restricting the availability of housing choice.
Let's hear from some more members as to how you want to take this. If you want to do what Will suggested, fine. Just let's come to a decision as a group.
I'm just looking through the rest of the finding.
You want to come back to the heading then? Sometimes I write my intro paragraph at the end, or I rewrite it at the end. Sarah, Leticia, Sasha?
Yeah, I do agree that I think we cover that in the finding, so I don't feel strongly about the final words here, but I guess that's the problem. I don't feel strongly. I do think we cover it. But I guess it depends on how others feel too. It doesn't need to be there.
Thank you, Sarah. Larry?
I guess I
Sasha,
would say
Sasha?
that I don't feel strongly either, which sort of makes me feel like if including the language makes other folks feel more comfortable in what we put out, then I'm for just including it so that we feel like we're all on the same page. And that it's clearly delineated.
And I'm okay, including, the language that Will had. I think my recollection was that was one of the things that the panelists talked about, generally,
Okay, great.
so.
So how does it look now? I can't really see you all. I'm trying to move you around. So the concentration of affordable housing can impact long-term outcomes for individuals and families by restricting availability of housing choice. You could like maybe come, go ahead there.
I think it looks good to me.
I know.
Yep.
Larry, Sasha, Leticia, Sasha said yes.
I'm also saying yes.
Agnostic on it, so.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Larry, what did you say?
I said I'm agnostic on it.
Okay, so, okay, so all in favor, let's just hold up a hand. I can't see it. Half of you don't have your cameras on. So if you could just turn your camera on or give me a thumbs up. Larry's not voting. Leticia, hi, nice to see you. Thumbs up. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we got 5. We're going for it. We're accepting that.
So that's it.
Okay. Anna, do you want me to, are you catching this as well, Anna? Are
Yes,
you
I am.
typing? Okay, great, perfect. So let's keep going. What do you want to do with this? I just feel like in this section, we repeat so often. We just like I'm sorry, Anna. We just keep repeating. And yes, we might give access to the report in the footnote, but that's not explaining. It's always stronger when you have data in it, I believe. It's just referencing it. Go ahead, Larry. Larry, you came off mute. Larry, did you want to say something?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Anyone else?
So I'm just proposing a compromise here.
Oh.
This section refers to research by, the economist Roschetti. It's cutting edge research. It's a couple years old. It's really probably the state of the art in terms of the effects of geography on outcomes. So I would really like to include that research. I think it is important. I think if we are trying to bring up new perspectives and not old perspectives, this really needs to be in here. With that said, if we want to provide more detail or data, what we can do is go into the underlying citations and pull out, some data, some description, and then to add a couple sentences. I would rather modify through addition as opposed to subtraction.
That's fine for me. Sarah, you're nodding.
Yep, that's fine. More data.
Anybody else?
That's fine with me as well.
Lucas, that's a great proposal, Will. Thank you. Anybody else? How about Anna, if you could take a look at what data you think from that resource might be a good data point to include, and then we can come back to that at our last session. Would that work?
Sure, I can do that. This is the section that is crossed out right now. Is that right?
Yep, I was just gonna uncross it.
Okay, just a reminder, we have 12 more days until our
Yep,
next
that's
meeting.
right. Thank you
And
so
I'm happy to
much.
help with that also, given the time frame. You just reach out to me.
Okay, thanks, Will.
So, then I would be fine with putting findings like these. Right now, we're not talking about any findings at all. So I would urge that we reject that, assuming that we're gonna put some information in there. I will say, instead of some researchers have found that, I think we should just write economist Raj Chetty has found that, and we should just name him in the report instead of the ambiguous some researchers. Yeah? Okay, great. So I took this from what the commissioner had sent. If I had just put in most affordable housing in the state has been built in the urban core cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. If we want to keep that, we could put historically, most affordable housing in the state has been built in the urban core cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul, period. However, MHFA reports that in the last several years, we could do that as a middle ground and then go right to panelists express concern. Did that make sense?
That makes sense to me. I think that capturing both elements, that's fine.
Beth, one question. The commissioner's letter made reference to footnote 151. What is that? What is 151? I see 150, which is Reverend Babington's testimony. Can you flip it on one more page to see what 151? I'm just curious.
It's from to answer your question, Larry, that's from written testimony provided by Gary Kwong. And it was submitted on May 31st, 2024.
I'm just curious because the commissioner specifically referenced those two, asking what evidence there was to support it. So just curious.
And yeah, great. So panelists. And if it was only one panelist, I don't think we should say panelists. I think we should just say one panelist. So look at that, I have an extra space in there too. So historically, most affordable housing in the state has been built in the urban core cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. However, MHFA reports that in the last several years, 63% of the new rental unit in the Twin Cities metro area that have been awarded funds through the agency's consolidate request for proposals have been in the suburbs, while 37% have been in the central cities of St. Paul and Minneapolis. Very long, but nonetheless, one panelist expressed concern. I think we could just take out also. One panelist expressed concern that these geographic patterns prevent lack of access to opportunity, including educational opportunity. Are we fine with that, folks?
I think we've had a couple comments submitted to that effect. I mean, I'm thinking specifically of Gary Kwong's and then maybe another one. So maybe one panelist and commenter. I don't want to leave them out. But
Okay, any other ideas?
I think what you have makes sense. It's, you know, comprehensive, covering the different aspects from what I understand.
Okay. So I'm wondering if we can accept the edits from this paragraph. Some panelists maintain that segregation persists and is perpetuated through affordable housing proposals. And you all already have those edits in red because those were in the last report. That's some work that I did to expand beyond Minnetonka and North Minneapolis, the juxtaposition of those two, to do more of a sampling around the cities. So going what Lucas said, Will, I know you suggested that we point out that that Ed Getz submitted a statement, but we didn't do that with the other report. So what if we just stick to the panelists? Would you be willing for that compromise?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Okay, thank you, Will. So, are we willing? Can we all, kind of give a hands up if we're in favor of the text that we have here? So we capture both thoughts that historically it has been built in St. Paul, Minneapolis, and now MHFA is working to expand it. And then we go into other cities. So I see Sarah, Will, are you in favor of that? Thank you, Sarah. Leticia, Sasha, I can't see you. Larry, I see a thumbs up by someone over there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, great. Okay, excellent. I love it. It's good to see your smiling faces too. So we have everybody in favor of those edits. Terrific.
Well, I didn't vote in favor. I just said I'm not opposing it.
Everybody but Larry. Larry's abstaining. Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you, Larry. Okay. So again, on page 45, these are the same communities. I just did median household income, but when I did this, I did the same communities, Minnetonka, Mendota, Delwood, Eden Prairie, as we had up above. St. Louis Park, Golden Valley. Oh, those ones are different. I see. I thought I did the same. Minnetonka, Mendota, Delwood, Eden Prairie. What do folks think? They're close. They tried to do a sampling. What do we want to do?
I thought this was good. I appreciate your effort here. Thank you.
Okay, Sarah's not.
Yep. Trying to use the same ones makes sense to me.
Okay, great. Okay. So I had asked to take this out last time on page 46. Students who come from segregated neighborhoods generally also do worse. And I think that worse is extremely subjective. And so I had asked to strike that.
So I thought that kind of repeated what was in this sentence before. So it's just, since it's repetitive, I don't have a problem removing it. I would like to preserve the citation. Maybe we can attach that to an earlier citation. Just the source.
Yeah, fine. Are we all generally okay with that? Yes?
Yes.
Sasha? Yeah. Yes, great. Lucas?
Yep.
Great. I have just a small change in this paragraph. Minnesota faces some of the most pronounced racial disparities. Most of our work focuses on people of color and their white peers, not youth of color, with the exception of educational attainment. So are we open to that? Just a little more general term.
Fine with me.
There really haven't been enough longitudinal studies done, in my opinion, that we can really see how our youth go after high school. We have their high school indicators, but then we don't have them. So let's keep going. Neighborhood opportunity and condition. I just simply would like opportunity and struck because it's unnecessary. I even think we could take out condition, but neighborhood affects overall community health and well-being. because that's really what we're saying.
I agree, that's fine. Brevity is great.
Okay. Sarah, Leticia, Sasha, Lucas, yes?
That's great.
Great. So this, I just didn't think it was necessary because we know that, yeah, it's just pointing fingers. We already talked about how most of the housing was in St. Paul and Minneapolis, and then they've worked to change. So I would just like to take it out and get out of that argument on MHFA and opportunity and all of that. So go ahead, Will.
I don't mind making some modifications here, but I don't think I'm going to take this out. The reason being that we invited people to testify. They came and graciously submitted their testimony and saying, well, we're going to remove it because it's too controversial or it contradicts MHFA, who are trying their best. I don't think that's appropriate. I think obviously Babington is currently engaged in a lawsuit against MHFA. He has some very serious civil rights claims against them involving segregation. He feels very passionately about when we invite him to testify. I would honestly object pretty strongly to removing that, simply because, I guess we decided MHFA deserves the benefit of the doubt. So does he. With that said, I'm fine modifying, say, even being specific, say one panelist who's currently engaged in a lawsuit against Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, made these claims and then retaining it in that context so that the full context is available to the reader.
Sure, I'm fine with that. I just don't think we need to take the side of MHFA or Reverend Babington. That's not this committee's role. So if we want to say it like that, that's fine for me.
Yeah, in general, I'd say that as always, I prefer more to less, and providing the context is great. But removing stuff, altogether, it seems to be taking a side a little bit. So I think that's a good compromise.
Yeah, that makes sense to me as well.
Yeah,
So,
agreed.
one panelist who is currently engaged in a lawsuit against MHFA. Let's keep rounding out those words. Alleges that access to opportunity has not been sufficiently prioritized. Okay. This panelist, not these.
And Beth, just to let you know, we are at 12:50 and public comment will begin soon. If you could just wrap up this point.
Yeah, and we're almost done with section 5, so I'm going to keep going in section 5, if that's okay. So I know we have until 2:15 or 1:15, I'm sorry. So I want to end up using the full time. So I want to bump public comment back a little bit. So this panelist recommended that the agency better address these policies. He also spoke of the need for government agencies to follow. Yeah, great. Are we all okay with that?
Well, Beth,
Hold on.
throw this out.
Sorry.
What we seem to be, we're going to do this for, we're highlighting one panelist, and there are a lot of panelists that spoke. Commissioner Ho has spoken.
Yeah.
I actually, for what it's worth, again, I'm not going to oppose whatever the group decides, but I think that whole paragraph really wasn't necessary. But
I agree with you, Larry, 100%. I don't think that this commission is any place for I don't think that the lawsuit needs to carry out here. That said, I am more than willing to make a concession if this is what the group wants. Same thing. This was, I just had a problem the whole time with this. So
I mean, I would again note that we invited Babington.
I know. I know.
And, you know, I think that we are not the MHFA Defense Committee, we're the US, CCR. And so I think that including both perspectives is really important.
Yep, we're just the state commission. Yep. So
Do we think that we include a sufficient side from Minnesota Housing in response? I mean, whatever their response is. I mean, Larry's point about highlighting one person versus another, I mean, that's not our place. And so I tend to agree with him there. And I guess I would wonder, whether we think the opposite view is sufficiently addressed to ensure that if we're including one side, that both sides are actually included.
So I think we did just insert a passage from MHFA saying that they developed a lot of housing in suburban areas, which I think is their basic policy response to some of these claims. So I think that we are including perspectives from MHFA. Obviously, we're not litigating, excuse me, the underlying legal claims about the Minnesota Human Rights Act or whatever. But in terms of the policy claims of you're building a lot of housing and these areas versus you're not doing a good enough job, I think we've got both sides in here as it stands.
So, Leticia, Sarah, Sasha, what are your thoughts around Lucas's question?
I mean, I would have the same question if it's balanced both sides. I think it's fine to include Babington specific viewpoint, but I would have the same concern. It just needs to be balanced and make sure that we're not just highlighting one person here.
Yeah.
Is there a viewpoint from MHFA that we haven't included other than, the lawsuit should fail? I mean, I think that we've included their claims about how much housing they're building and where.
To me, what this is saying, Will, is getting into the it's getting into the opportunity argument. And so I think what we have to do as a group, if we can either choose to accept this as written or not, is going to be the first thing I'm going to ask us to do. So I would say all in favor, let's see if it can pass like this. So if you can come off camera, please. Or give me a thumbs up if you're okay with this as written.
Can we also vote on maybe taking it off like you had it in the first place, Beth?
Can we also vote to just remove it completely?
Correct.
Yeah. Should we do that first? Would you like to do that first?
I would, but I think I'm the only one who would like to take it off first.
Sasha, what are you thinking? Larry, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I'm with Leticia, but if the group as a group decides it wants to keep it however they want, that's fine. But I don't think it belongs. So.
Okay.
I have to step up for a second, so I need a minute to catch up.
Okay, so-
I'm likely inclined to go with the majority here, but give me a second.
Lucas,
I am somewhat to Larry's point agnostic on this paragraph. I think it captures what one panelist said. I don't necessarily feel like it has to be there. So I don't really have a strong feeling either way. I think the way it's written, if it's included, should, because we're identifying who said this in particular. But I don't feel strongly that it needs to be there either. So.
At the risk of
Okay.
being a broken record here,
we gotta let our colleagues get their opinion first. We know you want to keep it. Sarah, do you want to keep it or get rid of it?
I would say get rid of it in the same vein we did earlier. If we can't agree on it and it's not
Yeah.
100% necessary to the report, then I'm okay with removing that.
Okay, but that's what I would say too. So that it's Larry, Leticia, Lucas, Sarah, and me. So that's 5 for removing the paragraph altogether. Sasha, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, because I'll either abstain or go with the majority. At this point, it won't matter, so.
Okay.
all right,
Okay.
can I make a comment on the record then about this? This is
So-
a black civil rights plaintiff who we invited personally to give his perspective on MHFA, in which he is engaged in a civil rights lawsuit against because he believes that they have violated civil rights of Minnesotans. I think removing his testimony because he gave us the exact testimony we asked for, and we believe it's too critical or controversial, is frankly offensive. And if I was Babington, I would be outraged by this. So I really strongly oppose this removal. I think that putting it in correct context is appropriate. I think removing it simply because we don't want to have his voice is inappropriate.
Will, I did not hear any of your colleagues say that they want to remove it because we don't want to have Reverend Babington's voice included in this. I heard folks say that it doesn't add to the finding. And the whole finding is arguing that where you live matters. So I heard your colleagues say that it isn't necessary to put that in here. So that's what I heard your colleagues say, because the whole finding is about this argument. So I'd like to keep going. So right here, because the sentence, a striking statistic from Minneapolis highlights this disparity, white residents with a median income of 83,076 can live in many high income areas of the city instead of high opportunity areas. And then in contrast, I added Black residents' median income in Minneapolis. And I just felt like, and then statewide, the similar trend, because it seemed to me that our whole argument is on these disparities and that they're on racial lines and that housing impacts it. So are we okay with these changes? Anybody want to give an opinion here? Just what do you think? Larry, you came off. Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm okay with these changes.
Larry?
I don't have any objection. Again, I'm agnostic about it, but no objection.
Okay. Will? Leticia?
I'm okay with those changes. Thank you.
It's fine with me.
Thank you. Lucas and Sasha, do you want to give an opinion here? A perspective?
They're fine with me.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I'm
those,
as well.
Okay, great. So those are accepted. And Anna, you said, remind me again, please. 3. Okay. Services, jobs, and education. Well, I really love how you say that housing. So what we did was we took out the opportunity framing and review all housing policies to emphasize that housing is a gateway for services, jobs, education. We can input transportation. I mean, that's all, it's also connected. So are you folks up for accepting 3A as written?
I would personally think it would be improved by the addition of a little more specificity. Let's say, so keep it at, that section, all policy, to emphasize as a gateway, and then say, as such, housing should be made available in a wide range of geographies to maximize housing choice. Just there's a policy, it's more than just review. There's also a call to action.
So what you're saying really is go back to our heading for finding 5.
Right. I think there's a little bit of a nice echo symmetry in there.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, sorry to give you all whiplash. Okay, I'm going to go back again, give you all whiplash again. Okay. So review all housing policies to emphasize that housing is a gateway for services, job, education. Okay, so let's get some thoughts in here around how we can work this. So it would be actually a new finding. It would be not encourage, that's too soft of a word, but work to diversify locations, or what, tell me what you said again, Will.
I would say work to ensure that affordable housing units are available in all geographies to maximize housing choice.
Great. What do folks think about that? Throughout the states, let's just make it even more specific.
Yep, I'm good with that.
Sarah, great.
I'm good
Larry?
with it too.
Looks good, Beth.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I think so that's fine. I mean, whatever.
Great, Sasha gave a thumbs up too. Awesome. So we've got 3A is review all housing policies to emphasize that housing is a gateway for services. And we've got 3B, work to ensure that affordable housing units are available in all geographies throughout the state to allow Minnesotans to maximize housing choice. Okay, great. So the last one we have, and then we can go to public comment, is 5D. We had written last time, I had written, and we didn't consider it, pass legislation to ensure housing agencies provide support to a minimum standard as determined by statewide policy. Just trying to change the focus of that. What are thoughts? Will? Sarah? Yeah, thumbs up for Will. Sarah? Larry? Hands up for Larry. Good. Sasha, Leticia, Lucas? Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then the last one that I just added today was pass legislation to create uniformity statewide around property rights to allow more housing production. So it's not that we would have to eliminate single family housing, but we can simply, if we push communities to allow other options on single-family housing, we will see more growth. And we will see more housing units. Any thoughts?
I feel like that was one of the things that the panelists talked about.
Yeah,
So I would
yeah.
add it.
Okay, Larry gave a thumbs up. Sarah, Will. Okay, great. All accepted. Okay, and that concludes the review of our report. The only thing that we still have to act on is the section where we are going to pull some data out from the article of from the resource with Raj Chetty. It's 146 or something like that. Yep, 146, footnote 146. So that's the only thing that remains from the entire report. And we will address that next time. And Will, you're going to connect in with Anna to pull some specific data points. Since the next paragraph, we start out as a result of findings like these, but we don't give any findings. So we're just going to be more specific. Are we good? Okay, excellent. Now, Anna and Liliana, thank you for your patience. Thank you to all the community members hanging by. We will give folks 1 minute, panelists or the public, members of the public. How many people want to speak? Anna gave me the name of a couple. So Anna and Liliana, because I can't see anybody, 3 members of the public who wish to offer public comment. We've got Myron Orfield, Owen Duckworth, and Linda Soderstrom. So I'm going to put those in alphabetical order.
Beth, it's actually, sorry, it's actually in order of hands raised. So the order
okay,
the order I have is Owen Duckworth, Linda Soderstrom, and Myron Orfield. And also looks like we've got one from Gary Kwan. So I'm going to go ahead and give Owen the permission to talk.
Thank you.
And, yep, we should be all set.
Okay, great, thank you.
Hello, can people hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Owen Duckworth. I'm the Director of Organizing and Policy at the Alliance for Metropolitan Stability. I'm here representing the Equity in Place Coalition. We have submitted comments, of course, to past couple drafts of the Examining Fair Housing report, and admittedly somewhat late on in this process, partially because we've only honestly become aware of this process fairly late on. We do appreciate the committee and members of the committee for listening to a broader set of voices than initially included in some of the conversations and some of the testimony. And of course, we're listening to some of the concerns that members of our coalition, our partners have raised, as well as concerns that others have raised as well about pieces of the report. I do wish, honestly, that more members of our coalition would have been invited to testify, given some of the valuable experience that they bring on the issues. And I want to start also by making sure that folks are clear that our Equity in Place Coalition is not an industry organization or coalition. We are BIPOC-led organizations working on housing issues directly in community and working in coalition on advancing upstream housing policy, investment, systems change strategies, right? Our coalition partners organize renters and communities around the metro that includes inner city to suburban communities where they are engaged in fights to protect existing affordable housing, expand affordable housing options, and protect renters in the places they live, as well as get new affordable housing developed. And honestly, we formed as a coalition precisely because we saw the harm that was being done based on these type of conversations about fair housing issues that were excluding our communities, namely communities of color, and were led by and happening in academic spheres rather than impacted people and impacted communities. And when you look at a lot of the organizations in our coalition, African Career Education Resource, Inc., Westside Community Organization, Native American Community Development Institute, Inquilinos Unidos, New American Development Center. These are, again, cultural organizations very much on the ground in communities of color and indigenous communities in our region. They understand the lived reality that renters and BIPOC communities are facing. We also partner with organizations such as Housing Justice Center and Homeline, who are working with renters on organizing and legal supports around the state. And I'll say again, relative to the field of community development, we have significant disagreements, significant challenges with them on these issues, even as we do have community development entities as partners of ours who believe they are aligned in missions around justice and engaging renters and systems change. So again, we've stated this before, we believe that there needs to be more affordable housing everywhere in the region. We believe that people and communities most impacted by housing inequities need to be at the center of these decisions, at the center of narratives getting created about their communities as well. And that's part of the reason why we've pushed back strongly against this areas of opportunity narrative historically. I don't need to get into the weeds of that argument again, but I just want to point out that for us, it oftentimes this argument reemerging honestly is also frustrating because we believe it obscures many of the real most pressing housing issues that people are facing day to day, many of which are named in the report. But as you see in this very conversation, there's been an immense amount of energy devoted to this piece of it instead of around location, as opposed to what are the actual fair housing issues that people are facing, places where people are being discriminated against. Again, I want to applaud the report for a lot of the strong analysis of fair housing issues that you've done. We hope that those recommendations will be listened to. I know I'm at time, so
sorry. Okay, thank you. I don't mean to interrupt anybody, but panel or public, you get 2 minutes each, and we really need to ask you to stick to time. Thank you, Owen, for being here. Now we need to go to, is it Linda? I'm sorry, my chat has.
Yes, Linda Soderstrom here. Very quickly, I'm not hearing enough in this report about home ownership, about rural life, about urgency, about displacement, about triage and reparation. Also not intersectionality enough with disability and transportation. With that, I'll pass to Gary Kwong.
Actually, Linda, Gary is the fourth person to speak. So if you're done, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We all appreciate your perspective. We'll go to Myron now for 2 minutes.
Okay, I just got unmuted. I'm Myron Orfield. I'm the Earl R. Larson Professor of Civil Rights and Civil Liberties at the University of Minnesota Law School. I worked for President Obama and the Obama administration, the development of the 2013 Disparate Impact Rule and the Affirmatively Further Fair Housing Rule, and had a close association with Walter Mondale on these issues, who was the author of the Fair Housing Act. As Senator Mondale said, the principal purpose behind the Fair Housing Act was to reduce residential segregation and to encourage residential integration. There are 508 pages of Senate testimony on this subject. 16 senators gave speeches about the fundamental purpose of the Fair Housing Act was to encourage residential integration, educational integration. 4 senators spoke at length about the complicity of the affordable housing industry in maintaining racial segregation. Walter Mondale, Edward Brooke, the only black senator at the time, Senator Case, Senator Proxmire, Senator Muskie, and that was included by many pages of testimony, many hundreds of pages of testimony about the complicity of the affordable housing industry in maintaining segregation. HUD siting rules and the debate require that the quality of schools and the integration of schools be considered. Swan versus Charlotte Mecklenburg says that housing segregation causes school segregation and is intertwined. President Obama and his affirmatively furthering fair housing rule, which I had the privilege of working for President Obama, mentioned school opportunity 40 times. President Biden, in reintroducing the rule, mentioned school opportunity as a principal guideline of citing affordable housing 42 times. So when we're rejecting the opportunity index, we're not rejecting some old ancient idea. We're rejecting President Obama's principal way of discussing affordable housing. That is President Obama's construction of this, and it's sad to see that this committee is rejecting President Obama's structure. We have 182 segregated schools in the Twin Cities that are more than 90% non-white and poor. Our residential counterparts who are similarly segregated, Portland has 1, Seattle has 40. We have concentrated a huge percentage of the affordable housing, almost all of it in the central cities, in footprints of completely segregated schools. A recent report that's cited in your study about segregated schools showed that the segregated
Myron, I'm sorry, just wrap up that thought. You're at time.
I think that this committee has been overly influenced by a huge affordable housing industry that has a deep self-interest in maintaining residential and educational segregation. This is the only way they know how to build affordable housing. 150 Black churches are suing the state
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Now we've got to go to Gary for our last 2 minutes. Go ahead, Gary, you have 2 minutes.
I would agree with Myron that we have a high degree of segregation of the affordable housing. And one of Micah's complaint with HUD against the cities of St. Paul and Minneapolis, we had Brooklyn Park, where also there's the affordable housing is in a particular area. And I feel that we do need to include that we have the biggest educational gap between the people of color and the non-white. And I specifically sent information in about the housing website for Minnesota Housing Finance. Doesn't really explain that if you need oral help because you're not literate in terms of writing and you don't understand the wording, that it's important that people know their rights as tenants and as potential homeowners in order to be able to have access to affordable housing. And so it's important that the housing department create a speakers bureau, or at least have people on their staff who can interpret things in a culturally appropriate manner. Because otherwise people can have all the rights, but if they don't know about those rights, because even you can graduate now without being literate in English because there is no English standard for graduation from high school. And so it seems unfair to expect that people will be able to locate somebody who can explain everything to them in a manner they understand. And I think that's an important feature of any civil rights legislation, is that you have to know about it in order to be able to access it. And that's the whole part about, have the new part about forgivable loans and no interest loans, but that's not always obvious as to what that means. And I couldn't find it the other day when I went on the website. So it's just a matter of how do you make things freely available to people so they understand what it is.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you so much, Gary. You've probably been one of our most committed public community members. You've been here nearly every session and you've spoken at every one. So thank you, Gary.
Thank
With that, we are over time. I thank you all for staying. I know Anna would have preferred that I ended earlier, but I really believed in all of you that we could get through the draft of that report and get through our recommendations, and we did. The only thing we have left to do is around footnote 146. And I'm really grateful, Will, that you will work with Anna to give some pertinent data in there. Anna, is there anything else that you would like to add as we take a motion to close?
Just a reminder that we have a final meeting on Friday, June 14th. Liliana put it in the chat for any member of the public if they would like to join that meeting. I will send out a draft of the report shortly after this one. Maybe it'll take about a day or so. I will also be sending it out to our stakeholders who have been involved in this process.
Great. Thank you, Anna. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Everybody have a great day. Thank you for doing this. We need quorum at the next one. Otherwise, all of our work is for naught. So I will see you on the 14th.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.